Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Knicks Film School pregame show. My name is Andrew Claudio, a.k.a. GMAC, and it's time to preview the Knicks' upcoming matchup on Tuesday night down in South Beach against an old friend, an old rival. But I'm here to mend fences today because, first of all, it's just been a brutal weekend for your boy when it comes to sports. A shout out to Carter Rodriguez of my other home, the Chase Down podcast, where he covers the Cavs. He said when the Knicks defeated the Cavs last year in the playoffs that sports really are just like the dumbest thing because you're almost 95% of the time to end your season disappointed. And yet we still come back for it because that 5% chance that maybe it's even a lower percent for some franchises that you'll end the season in an unforgettable, exciting fashion is what we're all chasing after. Well, this is one of those weekends, if you root for a New York sports team in blue and orange, that you probably want to forget between what happened over at Citi Field and, of course, what happened in San Antonio and then at MSG on Sunday night. They hopefully can turn the vibes around down in South Beach. But I'm going to welcome on my good friend, Mr. Giancarlo Navas of the Miami Heat beat. He's back for another round. First of all, Giancarlo, how are you, my friend?
Listen, the Heat beat the Blazers by, and this is a true stat, 2,000 points.
Yes.
I'm alive because right now, the Knicks, I'm sure your audience is familiar. I have a lot of sports hate for the Sixers, the Knicks, and the Celtics and the Lakers. However, all my energy is focused on Joe Cronin. And I was given a gift from the heavens.
I saw the score.
That's
I was a bit busy on
Easter weekend. I was blessed. That's all I'm saying.
I was a bit busy Friday night. I did see the score, and it just kept being 10 points more every time I looked.
Wasn't it great?
I mean, we did check in to see how Malcolm Brogdon and Robert Williams and Jaime Jaquez and Jovic were doing in the game, and I knew what the significance would be.
We call them the package. We call the Jovic, Jaime, Duncan Robinson. We call them the package.
Yes, the one that the Blazers turned down. Look, no. I want to start this off properly and officially on behalf of Knicks fans say you guys were right. Josh Hart did injure Jimmy Butler. We concede, and we fully acknowledge exactly what your frustrations have been. What's today's date?
You, the first guy to get me all day.
Yes, I'm glad I got you because I have a bone to pick with your boy Jaime Jaquez Jr., part of the package. I guess, so is this an eye for an eye that Josh Hart inadvertently injures, maybe clumsily injures Jimmy Butler in the playoffs, and it, in your mind, or in the minds of Miami Heat fans, derailed your season is what I was
Ended
told.
Our season. Ended.
Fine, ended. Guess what happened on January 27th at Madison Square Garden? Julius Randle goes up for a layup, and one Jaime Jaquez Jr. decides to recklessly take a charge, and Julius dislocates his shoulder, and the season has not been the same ever since.
This is what the Pelicans did with Kevin Love, trying to take it. I don't think guys taking a charge is fair game.
I think Jalen Brunson takes a ton of charges, so I can't fully
take that up with the league. Take that up.
I can't fully push back. What I will say is Brunson has like a physical disadvantage because he's like short. So his only way to play defense is like, all right, run me over. Like if you can run me over, then fine.
It's stupid to not use something that is so potent at your disposal. I really don't to like not be memey for a second, to be serious. I think that there has to be some sort of rule so that the offensive player cannot just barrel, because then guys like LeBron, you just really, what do you do? You know what I mean?
Giannis too, yeah.
Giannis, Embiid, what do you, not Jason Tatum, who's allergic to the rim. He's such a fraud. I can't stand him. But all the good players with guts, Jimmy's another guy. What do you do? You just, you don't have recourse. Players are too good on offense. You don't have a recourse. I do think that there is, it's certainly not safe. And we can't pretend that it's safe. And we also can't pretend that we can live without it. There needs, and again, I hate being the guy that's like, something has to change. I don't got ideas. But certainly, like, that has to come from the players. I think first, players need to be like, okay, this is what we want. Because, of course, it's their careers, not for the media or not for executives in suits to say and legislate. So I do think it's a problem. I just don't think that, like, guys are like, if Jalen does it, if somebody gets hurt, if Jalen comes to take a charge, somebody gets hurt, you know, that's again, and they're playing a contact sport. You know, people are going to get hurt in a contact sport. We have to try to legislate as much of that out, but it's tough. It is tough. And listen, we don't want anybody to get hurt ever. We love the game. We love to see the best players in the world compete at the absolute highest level. And it's why Josh Hart is not seeing the pearly gates.
Well, guess who's with a one-way ticket wherever Josh Hart is going is Jaime Jaquez Jr.
Maybe they can be bunkmates.
Fine, as long as, listen, I just wanted that acknowledged that when I say you're speaking on behalf of Heat fans everywhere, and the mentions that I see that Josh Hart ruined the Heat season.
He didn't do it on purpose, but he was just like kind of a goober, and he wanted a call. He wanted a call, and he embellished contact and fell funny, and it ruined the season. I think that's what happened. I think very rarely does a guy actively try to hurt another dude, like, in a way that's going to prevent them from playing basketball. I think it was late in the game. He wanted a call because Jimmy is very physical, and Josh Hart's a very good defender at that position. And I think Josh Hart does a good job on Jimmy. But I think when you're kind of late in the game and you're facing a guy that's bigger and a little stronger than you, I don't blame him for doing that. I just think that, like, it was just the way he landed was goofy, and he's kind of a goofy.
We've discussed this before. I will call Josh Hart goofy any day of the week, and I probably agree with your interpretation, but I just want a spade to be called a spade. And if Bam's foot can be under Randall's ankle last year, and if Jaime Jaquez can step under Randall,
those injuries, those are freak. Guys that step on getting rebounds, that stuff's freak.
I think if a contact injury, like what happened with Hart and Jimmy when they're playing physical in the playoffs, I think you could argue a freak accident happened.
It's freak, even if it was an accident. He shouldn't have. If he didn't try to flop to get a call, nobody's hurt, I guess is my point.
I can listen. You want to eliminate flopping from the entire league? Then, like, we just got to go through every single player in the sport and be like, all right, well,
Kyle Lowry,
have you ever flopped? That's right. Kyle Lowry is somebody that's never flopped. I remember.
Famous.
Look, I kid for the most part about, like, happy April Fools, Giancarlo. The very tough part about talking to the Miami Heat, representative of the Miami Heat beat, and someone from the fan base is, like, I genuinely think the Knicks are better this year. Last year, I may have been, like, talking myself into it, but the Heat have remained my boogeyman because of just past PTSD, the respect I have for Spo and Jimmy and what they've accomplished. And that January 27th game was a bit of a coronation for 3.5 quarters. And unfortunately, it may be the ceiling of this season because Randall, there's just no update that indicates he's coming back anytime soon. And look, you warned me. I think every single person that's come on this pod that I've asked, what do you think of Anunoby? He's like, oh, great. I hope he plays. And we're just riding out the OG Anunoby experience at the moment.
He's good,
and it all kind of ended the last time the Knicks played the Heat.
When he's out there, yeah, oh boy.
They're 15-2. He's got a 67 on off right now, a plus 67 for the season. It might have gone down a little bit, but, like, for most of the year, it was like, oh, so we're a finals contender when we have Anunoby. And now we just don't know if we're going to have Anunoby this season. But first, I want to talk about your team, because they're 41-33.
Yippee.
In the play-in at the moment, in striking distance of 6th. I mean, I'll just go here. What do you want from the end of the season? Are you invested in, like, another playoff run from a lower seed? Do you still think they can get to 5 or 4? Do you? I mean, I've talked to you a little bit off air, and I know that this has just been, like, kind of a meh season across the board. Is that consistent with everybody?
I'm gonna keep it a stack.
Okay,
let's get to 6 and play Cleveland. After that, I don't care.
Okay,
just get me to Cleveland. Winnable. I don't think Cleveland's beaten Miami this year. If it was once. Miami has beaten Cleveland pretty comfortably a lot of the times, including by 40 at home recently. That is a matchup that I believe in them. I think that might be out of the potential matchups. I think that are realistic are New York, Orlando, and Cleveland. Orlando being very outside. I think if Orlando, for Miami to get to 4-5 and Orlando to stay in 4-5, I think you need something to happen disastrous to New York that I just don't see happening. And they only have a 1-game lead on Orlando and 3 on Miami. I think that's just going to be hard to leapfrog for the Heat. But I do think that getting to 6, they're half a game out of 6, and that 3-6 matchup against Cleveland is what I would want. I think New York for sure can get into that, and we could have 3-6 Miami. I'm not big on the Heat this year, and I've said a lot on my podcast, and I know I've talked to you in private. They have a lot of red flags that I have not liked, and they've had red flags in the past that I was able to talk myself, well, if this goes right, I could totally see them kind of being able to finagle XYZ. I am not a believer in their defense for the playoffs. I think they play too much drop. They switched a lot in that Knicks game where New York fried them. New York and Boston, I believe that was the same week where they were doing a little bit more switching than they had all season, which for those who don't know, that's kind of the base of the Bam Eric Spoelstra defense. It's all switching, zone, hedge for the like kind of poor defenders like Hero and Duncan Robinson, right? Those guys and Kevin Love, they show hard on pick and roll. They switch that stuff. They swarm. They help a ton from the corners and at the nail, and they send all that help and they rotate out. And that's how they do it. And they are able to rebound enough to survive kind of those things. And they've gone away from that. And I think part of that is Kyle Lowry. Remember, Kyle Lowry's not in Miami anymore, but he was another year older, and he was just not a point of attack defender at all, pretty much. He was still a very good helper. I think that they still miss his help a ton. I think he was kind of their best low man, kind of given their structure. Miami typically has a guard or a small guy in that weak side corner, and that guy is the last line of defense. So that's a rotation. Now it's Rozier or Robinson if they're not on the ball, or Hero when he plays, right, or whoever that guy is. Which when Lowry does it, it's different because he has great hands. He could take a charge to kind of tie it into what we said at the beginning of the show. Their defense they can't do that as much anymore. So to combat that, what they've done is now they just put Bam in a lot of drop to let the guard survive in pick and roll. So if Rozier or Lowry at the time, or Hero or Robinson, if they're on the ball handler, Bam's just didn't do that. They're going to kind of come in from the wing or from the nail, and they're going to play that way. It's been successful. I believe they're top 10 this year defensively. Again, they're number 6. I don't believe in that in the playoffs because even let's use New York, for example. You want to give Jalen Brunson a bunch of pull-ups?
I was about to say, hearing about how much drop they're in, the Knicks, I mean, Brunson specifically is he's just murdered drop all season, whether it's been when the Bucks go to it and Brook Lopez is in drop, or honestly, the 2 Heat games this year too. Brunson's just kind of
that was a lot of switching. That was a lot of switching that I think Brunson was able to kind of manipulate some matchups, and I thought Randall played really well, especially in that game that he unfortunately got hurt. But so if I'm Miami, and I think Milwaukee's had this problem, they did it, and I don't want to listen. I don't want to be the guy to be like Milwaukee had a fake title. That season was such BS. Short off season. All the good teams from the year before had the shortest off season. Milwaukee, they earned the title, but they haven't gotten close since. And I think the way that they played defense was a part of why it was so difficult. I mean, Toronto shredded them in 2019. It was Van Vliet and Lowry pull-ups, particularly because they gave a lot from the top of the key. And I just think that you play with fire. The Lakers won in 2020. They were able to do it because Anthony Davis is just built different, man. He's just built different. Unless you have a guy, and not that Bam's not built different, but you have more size with Davis, and the Lakers were just really, really, really big. And that defense was awesome. And Lakers could downsize, and they did, right? You put LeBron at the 4 and AD at the 5, and then they switched a lot. And Frank Vogel's a great defensive coach. So all this to say, I don't believe in Miami's drop in the playoffs. I imagine when rubber hits the road, Claudio, we're gonna see them switch, and I just haven't seen that enough like in the season it'd be successful. So I'm like, their offense, I think is pretty well documented. What are they? 21st. It's so blah. They just don't generate anything at the rim. Rozier's been good lately, but he was like kind of before like this recent 6-game stretch. They can't shoot. Everybody's hurt. Duncan Robinson has some back thing that I've never heard of before. He just came back. Tyler Hero's missing. That's their other good shooter. Patty Mills is, I saw Patty Mills at a coffee shop the other day. Not doing the greatest. He's a very nice person and very handsome man. Not really helping their offense right now, or their defense for that matter. Kevin Love's been out for a million years. Jimmy is having, I think, his worst season in a Heat uniform. They have a lot of red flags that I'm like, I am not so sure about them.
Okay. That was extremely detailed, and I loved it. Like, this is one of the fun things about potting with Giancarlo, Knicks fans, is like, I know we hate him because of the team he represents and the city that we wish we had.
Hey,
we wish we had their weather.
New York City's great. I love it. I've never said
I know.
it.
No. I'm speaking on behalf of Knicks fans, sir. You know where I went for the All-Star break. I get to Miami whenever it's 12 degrees over here in New York, as often as I can. But I believe the way the kids describe it is, ball. So when I listen to you just talk basketball for a while, I actually do get a full encapsulation of the Miami Heat, even though I've basically just been checking in on League Pass when I can.
They're not very fun. I apologize on their behalf.
Well, so I'm a scoreboard watcher though, so fun or not, like I'm just like, if they're playing somebody that matters in the standings, I'm just going to check in. And like, first of all, I hear you about the Terry Rozier stuff, and
he's been very good lately, though. I even
lately, yes, and it's like that Cavs game was what started it, where he hit the Kyrie step back. That was the beginning of like, oh, maybe he does have like a role in this offense and can find a bit more comfortable. Did I nail that? That was the beginning of this uptick.
He had shown flashes. I think that was the first. He had shown flashes before that. It would just be like he played good, and then he had 2 games that you're just like, that was not enough. I think it was the game against. It was after that. It was a game against New Orleans, where Jimmy didn't play, and he just no-showed. Right, so that was the game that directly followed that, and I remember being like, "I'm sorry, you just can't." You cannot no-show. I might have not been. It was one of those games around then that they missing a lot of guys, and I think he had like 13 points or something. And Bam was the only guy who showed up because Duncan Robinson's out, which is tough because really Miami is short on ball handlers right now. Claudio, their whole guard rotation was out. Tyler's out. Duncan Robinson's out. Who, by the way, Duncan Robinson has sneakily become like their second or third best ball handler.
It's actually crazy. Yeah.
When teams press Miami, there have been teams that like do a press. Spo gets Duncan Robinson in the game to handle and beat the press. And I'm like, what am I watching?
Yeah.
Right? So
his drives to, I don't know what the stats say about frequency, but like seeing him drive to the rim when you check in on the Heat now, and it's like, it's corner boy, Duncan Robinson. Like, what's going on here?
It's real. And I think that he looks for that more than he looks for kind of coming off the screen and shooting now more. Which is huge. But kind of all that to say, like they need Rozier to play well because they just don't have guards right now that are productive. I mean, they were starting Patty Mills for a week. DeLon Wright is here. You know what I mean? Like they just need something out of him. And he's had some inconsistencies, but he's shown flashes prior to that. You're just like, okay, like you play well. Then you give like 2 meh, then you play 2 good, and then you give 1 meh. This is the most recent stretch that he's just like, okay, you're just like playing well. It's been like this for the last 6-7 games, whatever it's been. Everybody's been tagging me all day because Kyle Lowry's my guy, and now we have a sample where Rozier's playing well. So they're going to need production out of him because it's been rough. So the stat is actually in March he's 18, 4 and 5 on 45, 39, 84 splits, just 1.2 turnovers a game. That stat was via 5 Reasons Sports, our good colleagues over there. So even I got to admit, that's pretty good. He's been playing well in this month, March.
Specifically, better than Kyle Lowry is probably the vinegar that you unfortunately have to consume there, right?
Yeah, and I was pro the trade because I thought that to be, to really, they don't have They're in cap hell. And if you're gonna, if you're Miami and you don't really have cap space and you have a Butler extension that's looming, you're paying Hero, you just gave Bam an extension, you're still paying Duncan Robinson, and it doesn't look like they want to get rid of Duncan Robinson or that they can get rid of Duncan Robinson. You really, Caleb Martin's about to be due for an extension. You really don't have a lot of places that you can go to improve your team, and Miami has been, I don't want to say that they're not they are a tax team and they're going to be a tax team, but Miami has for sure, and they're public about this, they do not want to be a repeater tax team, which I think they are going to have to be now, but they had avoided that pretty much since the LeBron years successfully. And the repeater tax is so punitive, though. I don't blame any team, unless you're the Warriors or whatever. So they've been able to, so they have all these kind of circumstances in their finances. So Lowry was going to expire and you're still over the cap, right? So when Lowry's contract was going to be up, Miami was still not going to be able to sign anybody with cap space. So flipping him for Rozier, who's younger and under contract longer and on a smaller number, makes sense, right? He's going to be on their books for longer, and they're going to kind of pay the tax for that in the long run. But if they want, they can flip him. They can break him into 2 contracts. And Claudio, what's most important is that if there's ever a guy that's available, they need to have like those big chunky contracts that get to dollar amounts. Because listen, we can make fun of them, and I think that it's at this point it's deserved. Like, no Durant, no Lillard. No, I don't know what other star has available. There's a long list of guys that, they haven't gotten that they wanted. But at the end of the day, they're in the conversation every time. Harden was another guy. And you need to be in the conversation. You need to have stuff people want, which are young players, draft equity, and you got to have easy money to send. Right. And that's what they try to do. So I was pro the Lowry trade for that reason.
You're literally talking to somebody who has like the definition of controllable salaries or bite-sized salaries.
The Knicks have done great. The Knicks have
like Bojan and the Mitchell Robinson, the way it's structured. I mean, not for nothing. Julius Randle's contract is actually pretty friendly now. While
it's going to be attractive to move if they want to get somebody. If they want to upgrade that, they can send him. And I believe New York has all their draft picks.
All their draft picks. That was, I think, so obviously nobody knows this, but you texted me the day of the trade deadline, and maybe this could transition to, or just can add some Knicks talk to this. But like, you were like, the Knicks haven't traded a pick yet this year, and they've like completely revamped their roster. It's like, they haven't traded a first round pick this year. Like the highest pick they've given up is this Detroit second that went to Toronto, which fine, that's like the 31st pick in the draft. It's technically, if you want to say it's a late first, you can, but they have control over all of their first round picks. The tough part is that they did that, but like a Quentin Grimes goes out, and if you're high on him, then you at least have that projection. And what they've gotten out of the 2 Detroit Pistons that play for them on this season, it's like the level, the step above nothing. Like they've gotten the step above nothing. They haven't gotten nothing from them because there's been like 3 games where Bojan showed up, and like 1 quarter where Alec Burks did, but they've mostly gotten nothing from them. So I have no idea, because these injuries may not ever fully go away, that we can't kick them out of the rotation unless like they're just going to go a 6-man rotation at the end of the season. But yeah, I think to your point about team building wise, the Knicks have obviously put themselves in a good position. This matchup on Tuesday, you mentioned a lot of injuries. We're recording this at 1:35 on Monday, on April Fool's. And for those who don't know, if you have to submit, league teams have to submit their injuries by 5 p.m. the day before. So it will have come out who's playing and who's not by the time this episode airs. But any idea who might be on the injury report that Knicks fans who haven't been watching the Heat could expect to potentially not play in this game?
So really the guys that are out now are just Hero and Love. Everybody else, Butler's available. So yesterday against Washington, Butler played, Robinson played, which were the 2 kind of question marks kind of going forward.
Caleb
Martin, did he play? I don't think he played. Yeah, he was inactive. Oh, I didn't. Forgot about that. You're right. Caleb Martin. So Caleb, Kevin and Tyler. Tyler's nowhere. Tyler might not play again this season.
He's in Randall land. Gotcha.
They have at least said, they had an update recently where they said he should be there. He's going to try to be ready like late in the season, maybe early in the playoffs. That to me is kind of read as I'm not so sure about that. The love one is really kind of the big one, because Thomas Bryant has played well recently. Not a fan of him. And I think Kevin Love just unlocks so much more for their team as a passer, as a not even just as an outlet passer, which that has been huge for them, but kind of a passer at the elbow at the top of the key. Just makes smart basketball plays. Has been a pretty neutral defender for them this year. As a rebounder, I believe he has their best rebounding percentage still. And he's been really good. And obviously Caleb Martin is kind of super important to their team. But they got Duncan back, which was really big for them, because he has been probably their third best player this season behind Butler and Bam, I think pretty comfortably. Especially because Tyler just hasn't been available this season. I think if Tyler had played more, we could have a different conversation. But I think Robinson for sure. And I actually think, Claudio, it's interesting because I think Robinson probably won the starting role back. I think if Tyler comes back, let's say in a month, I don't think he starts. I think Robinson has earned that starting role with Rozier, and that we're not talking about that. But I think it seems pretty likely that he's going to be the starter for the foreseeable kind of future of this season. So getting him back was huge, and I think he's big time for them. But yeah, we got to look out for Kevin and Caleb. Those would be kind of the two guys.
So then a two-part question. First of all, I mean, as far as like to just answer from the Knicks perspective, I fully expect. And then again, the Knicks fans, I hope I'm wrong when you're watching this later, but Randall Anunoby will be out. And Mitchell Robinson, who has a sprained ankle, will be questionable. And then, look, we'll see. Isaiah Hartenstein sprained his wrist against the Spurs in that classic on Friday. And Jalen Brunson's just always banged up. So who knows what these guys that are quite literally like fighting tooth and nail to keep this season alive while they're in the heat of this race for a potential like home court in the first round. But that's what I expect. So then going into this matchup, and I tell you that a Knicks team coached by Tom Thibodeau apparently like loves size, right? Is starting a lineup of Jalen Brunson, Deuce McBride, Dante DiVincenzo, and Josh Hart. Like if Josh Hart's a forward, he's a 6'5" forward, right? So it's really like four guards and Isaiah Hartenstein. That team going into Miami, and you're feeling what level of confidence in a win for the Heat?
I don't really feel confident in the Heat doing anything right now, and I know that they've played better.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I'm kind of really like about them right now. And I think a lot of that, I think a matchup that you're talking about right now, like with those little small guys, the guy that has to punish that is Jimmy. And Jimmy has not looked the way I would like, especially as late as we are into the season for him. And even in the games that they've won, I mean, like yesterday against Washington, you know, or what did he have? He had 17 on 5 of 11 shooting. Just like just not as active as you want, you know, a guy like him to be. In the game against Portland, I think he got to 13 or 14 points. It's not even like he's posting like these huge assist numbers, right? They're kind of average, like 4 or 5, you know, it's just like good, but not like to justify the kind of lack of scoring that you've had in the Portland game. On Friday, where they won by 60. I like to remind people that Jimmy had 8 points and he took 4 field goals.
And again, 4 shots. Yeah,
they won by 60, but I just want to see him active, because I think against New York, when they're smaller, the Miami's advantages, because New York has a lot of really good top to bottom guys, but the advantage is like who's supposed to, especially without Anunoby, you know, how can you manipulate the matchups to where Jimmy can get small guys? And that's really going to be their bread and butter in the playoffs. That's how they really have been successful. It's, can Jimmy find a matchup that he can pick on and he can kind of generate? Because Miami doesn't generate really great looks. It's like, can I do this? And then can our shooters hit enough shots? And if Jimmy's not going to be like that against New York, then like who's going to do it? You know what I mean? Like where does Miami's offense come from? And conversely, I kind of think the same about New York, especially without Randall. You know, and this is kind of a more broad conversation about the playoffs. It's like where I'm worried for them is, can they get enough offense beside Jalen Brunson? Like, or you know, because I don't think Brunson. I think in today's league, it's hard to just have like one guy that's doing the scoring for you. If he is, you have to be like, okay, you're the best guy in the playoffs right now, type stuff, which, Jalen has certainly shown that he can get to a level where, he dropped 60 the other night, and he's had big playoff moments, but can a guy like that at his size, which I think is the important part. And I think like asking, Bomani Jones said something once that I'll never forget. And I know that Bomani's not like a big NBA X's and O's guy, but they were talking about Chris Paul. And somebody asked, like, why has Chris Paul just never been successful in the playoffs, even though he has good games? Bomani said, if you ever stop to think that a guy that small having the ball that much at the end of games is a problem?
Yeah.
That's not an indictment on Chris Paul, but you need help in your teams and so not that Jalen's as small as him, but I just think that like New York's going to need more scoring. And I think Miami's going to go through the same problem, especially with Jimmy looking, in my opinion, kind of diminished. His finishing numbers are not good. He's at 63% at the rim this season. I'm sorry, 60% at the rim this season. That's not good enough. You know what I mean? And it's his lowest mark since his rookie season. That what he was at 48%. So I worry about Miami kind of finding scoring against New York if Jimmy's not going to be able to bully guys. And yeah, and then I branched it out into a longer term conversation.
No, you're good
about New York, but that's kind of because I think when New York's healthy, they have a ton of in the playoffs. What you need wing defenders. You need to be able to be versatile in your defensive schemes. You need to be able to get to the line, hit threes, which I think New York has most of that. I just think that they don't have the second guy. Maybe you can correct me about their shooting, but I think they need this. I think they need a little bit more offense next to Brunson. And I don't really think that Randall's that guy. And we've seen his kind of playoff performances. And again, I don't want to step on toes on your audience or whatever, but I just kind of think his track record is what it is. And that's just, you got to accept it at that point. And you just need a guy that's better than him, either better than him and Brunson or just in between him and Brunson to get you through the East.
Look, this is a whole different conversation. Like what Randall could be in the playoffs. I opened a
can of worms.
Right. But like the Randall playoff stuff, all of that's on the back burner right now. Like the way the injuries have just kind of derailed any expectations or vibes this season. Like you just mentioned that you need switchable guys. You need to be able to switch up your coverages. You need good shooting. You need, honestly, the way the positionless version of this team that they can go to with Anunoby, Hart at the 4 and the 3. Then you have this guard rotation of Deuce and DiVincenzo and Brunson. Like there are nights when the Knicks are just hitting all their threes and then just from 1 through 4 can just kind of beat you in multiple ways. To your point about Brunson and crunch time to the Chris Paul example, this may be disrespectful, and I know he's the master of the mid-range, Chris Paul, but I think Jalen Brunson has a wider bag than said P3. So I'm just going to go on record in saying that I'd rather have the ball in Jalen Brunson's hands over Chris Paul and a lot of people's. But like to your point, I think look, the league cracking down. I heard what Brian Windhorst said today that like the league specifically is like he's a foul baiter, which is not backed up by data. But thank you, Mr. Windhorst. Of course, yeah, I know he like gets calls, but to put him in the category of Trae Young and DeRozan and Harden is like he's like the tier. DeRozan?
Wait a second, did we just become best friends?
We might have probably.
Can't stand DeMar. Can't stand.
I respect him for what he is. I just think if he's your best player, you're a 9 seed, which look at what the season has been for Chicago this year.
I think he's ruined Kyle Lowry's career.
Oh, okay. Why? Because
he was his play was an abomination, and that's me being kind. And I think Lowry has gotten stained by DeMar's play in some of those playoff runs. And Kyle played through busted hands and stuff. And in the LeBronto series, I don't remember if it was a LeBronto series or another one. Kyle played well. DeMar was just awful. And then for DeMar to have comments, "Oh, we had LeBron, we would have won too." Yeah. I can't stand him. And I was so and I got to be honest with you, not coincidence that the second he walked out the door, they looked like a different team. And I know Kawhi walked in the door.
I was going to say, if Randall's been compared to DeRozan a ton, or at least we've tried to compare him as like,
I think
that's the upgrade that you can't call either of them good stats, bad team guy because of how much winning Toronto did and how much winning the Knicks have done.
Regular season winning, yeah.
Right. But that's my point. Like regular season winning, there's a lot of players that are good stats, bad regular season team. And I think Randall and DeRozan, there's a playoff level that you have to get to that the jury's still out.
Do you think
I have no idea, but what's up?
Do you think Randall's better than like Lauri Markkanen?
Different players. Like I think they have a similar thing where statistically, like if you were to look at Lauri Markkanen's stats, you would probably think he's better than he is. And I think what do you mean?
I think Randall has some of that too. Where like you look at
Lauri Markkanen being able to like spread the floor is a tool. I don't love how little passing. Like I don't know what that is. Like I'd love to find out, but I kind of like what Randall can do as a hub when he's on. Like it's why this January version of the Knicks that we saw, where he was like getting 7-8 assists a game, and like the advantage, we were all like, what if you surround Brunson with shooting? What if you surround Randall with shooting? Like a bunch of 40% 3-point shooters. You're giving Brunson like less responsibility where he doesn't have to have the ball the entire game. He's not completely wiped by the fourth quarter, and you're giving him catch and shoot opportunities, which he's shooting 40% from three for the year. I think he was shooting 40% for the year.
Would you trade Randall for Markkanen? I know that this is because
I wouldn't, but that actually is like a conversation in by like shout out to XJ and Menta, two of our staffers that are like, I would absolutely trade Randall for Markkanen.
Who's the worst player you would trade Randall for?
That's such a loaded question.
I know that's so hard. Like I was would you trade him for Aaron? Aaron Gordon's better, I think.
No,
by a lot.
I don't. I think.
Oh, see, wow,
Aaron
really?
Gordon is next to. I think if Aaron Gordon is next to Nikola Jokic, he's gonna look amazing. But I don't think you can run an offense through Aaron Gordon.
Aaron Gordon and Anunoby defensively.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of raw, bro.
I don't think he has the ceiling. I think Anunoby's in a different tier than Aaron Gordon. I don't think Aaron Gordon's bad, but I guess to your point, I think Aaron Gordon's a role player. I think Julius Randle can be your number two. Now, look, that's why this.
Would you trade him for BI?
No. I'd like. What's tough is that what's tough is Randle this year. This is the first year where an injury, thank you, Jaime, was like something that derailed the season. So availability was always something I could be like, I like players that play basketball.
Would you trade him for Tobias Harris?
No. Contract
aside. Let's pretend that the deal.
Well, still no. Have you talked to a Sixer fan lately about Tobias Harris?
Oh, buddy, I take a lot of glee in that.
I know you did probably. Oh, that's right. You would talk about New York being your mortal enemy. I don't. The Randall and whether he could be the number two.
I'm so sorry.
Like whether he could be the number two is a whole that's an off-season conversation, or if they meet in the playoffs late. They've been so derailed by injuries that I can't even think about whether he could be the number two. I have to think about whether we have 7 playable playoff players.
Do you think Do you think they get to 4? Do you think they get to 3?
I don't at this point. Their schedule's really tough the rest of the way, and with Mitchell coming back, I think I'm actually leaning toward so you mentioned. Just give me 6 in the Cavs, right? That's what you want for the Heat?
Yeah.
Give me the 4-5 versus Orlando.
Oh, if I'm you, that's
where I'm at.
Easy money.
I'll take advantage of a team that can't get to over 90 points in the playoffs.
I think you can beat them at the 5.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. It's not even like give me the 4-5 against Orlando either iteration.
Yeah, either side.
And that's like 7 games or Knicks home games at that point. Shout out Florida.
That's Knicks and 5, bro.
I've made this comp. I swear to God, I've made this comp since December, since the first time the Knicks played the Magic. And I know our friend over at the Dunker Spot, both, I'm blanking on both their names. I cover a lot of Nikias. Yes. So Nikias over at the Dunker Spot and Mr. Jones over at the Dunker Spot. Like they had this conversation the other day. Isn't Orlando just that Knicks team from 2 years ago? The Randall at the 4 seed, right? You called the Bucks title fake, right? Yeah. There's some Knicks fans that are like that Randall 4 seed was kind of fake. And I'm like, that was a team that was like a top 5 defensive team, a bottom 10 offensive team. They struggled to get to 100 points, but you were going to have a pain trying to score 100 points on them. They got hot at one point in the season, hit a ton of threes, and then come the playoffs, the lights were a bit too bright. I think that's an Orlando team this year. And so I go into this year, this playoffs, with the version of the Knicks that exists. I'm like, just give me the young, inexperienced team. Maybe we're healthy for Boston. Like, that's where I'm at the moment. And it's why any, like, can they win a title with Randall as the number 2 is so far beyond any Knicks fans' capacity at the moment, because it just doesn't look like January is coming back. What's up?
Would you rather be 4 or 6?
Oh, and play Cleveland again?
Play Cleveland, and then you avoid Boston in the second round. Because that's what's attractive.
I'm not afraid of Cleveland, if that's your question. Like, I'm not.
I know you're not, but obviously, like, you know, one thing is, like, I think Orlando for sure is the inferior team.
I'd rather play Orlando. There's a. I mean, I don't have to tell you this. There's a New York, Florida aspect where every game against the Magic is a Knicks home game.
Yeah, no, for sure. Listen, I've seen it. But I asked that because, like, getting out of 1-4 or getting out of that second round matchup with Boston, I think is attractive. And I don't know about you, but Milwaukee just doesn't move me in any way. And if I'm the Knicks and if I got to play Milwaukee in round 2, I'm just like, I'll take Doc Rivers. Like, I'll take him. Listen,
that was my attitude for most of the year.
Would it be the first time Tibbs, goes up against his former, you know what I mean? So
that was my attitude most of the year. If we got healthy, was like get to the 3, avoid Boston until the conference finals. Give me Milwaukee, although, like, I respect Giannis, but counterpoint Doc Rivers, right? This weekend kind of took it out of me. The OG Anunoby re-injury and the secrecy around it, that he was like, the Knicks' first words on his injury, the re-injury, was like, I'm pretty sure this is just what happens when. So why are you guys asking so many questions? This is what happens when someone comes back from injury. It's general soreness. And then he played another game against Sacramento, and it's been right elbow management. Like, it's injury management. They're not even saying what the injury is. And yesterday, my thought was, if he misses Easter against the Thunder, because they were playing all, like, garbage teams, like, if he misses the Thunder game, that's when I'll start to worry. And then not only did he miss last night's game against the Thunder, but then I had to hear from Josh Hart. We're just expecting that this is the team we're going to have. Then I had to hear from Tibbs. He's not even cleared for contact. And then shout out Fred Katz of The Athletic, who asked, like, the best possible question to try and interpret from Tibbs. He asked him in the pregame yesterday, is there any worry that he might not come back? Because he asked the exact same question about Mitchell Robinson like a couple weeks ago. And he was like, is there any worry he's out for the year? And Tibbs was like, no, we expect him back. And his answer about Anunoby was, we just got to live in the reality of right now. And it's like, oh, so you give a nothing answer. So you actually are worried that he might not come back at all.
That's not good, yeah.
Which is why, as is, I like our chances against Orlando. As is, Bucks, Celtics, like, I'm not even considering.
That's house money. Yeah, the second round's house money for us.
So that's why my floor is like, just be a second round team, and everybody has the offseason to get healthy if we're really not going to get anybody back. Now,
I'm kind of in the same boat as that, by the way, because I'm just like, can they win a first round matchup? Which I do think that they could against Cleveland. I do think they could win against, especially if Anunoby's not playing. I think they could against New York or Orlando. If Anunoby's not playing, I'd probably rather play New York than Orlando, just because the basketball is going to be more watchable against New York. Orlando's playing like basketball terrorists. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's first to 85 with them.
Oh my God. Well, which Miami's no better really, but
like, that's the thing, is like, you're basically going to have to win a dogfight against Orlando. Whereas, look, I'm not afraid of Cleveland. I like their probabilities of walking away from this season with another second round exit to a team that won 60 plus games because you didn't get healthy. And then you reassess this offseason.
I just hate that Boston is really, I feel like a lot of teams don't want to be in that 4-5. And if New York's not going to be right, I don't think Miami can get there. I think Miami's best chance is to get to 6. And they're going to start arresting dudes. You know that's going to come at some point later in the season. So it just pains me that Boston's just going to get a cakewalk, like either an injured New York team or Orlando, likely.
Can I paint a scenario for you?
Please.
What if it's 1-8 Boston against Miami?
I just really think Miami's going to get to 6. Maybe I'll eat those words.
But just like paint the picture with me though. Like, what happens if it's 1-8 and it's a rematch of the conference finals, and all of those ghosts and all of the Boston media members that are terrified of Miami, suddenly you put this
whoever
pressure.
wins game 1 wins the series. I think if Boston wins game 1, I think that they just like, okay, they have a little bit of relief. I think if Miami wins game 1, if Miami punches them in the mouth, I think there's some PTSD, because they can blow Miami out game 2 and it doesn't matter, because that game 3 of Miami, that is pure hatred. And it's funny because these series always end with the home teams never winning a game. So last year, I believe the road team won the last from game 4 on. You talking about
the Celtics series?
Yes, Miami.
The home team won game 3 and game 5, and that was it.
That was it. Yeah,
game 3 and game 5, because the previous he went up 3-0. Yeah.
The previous series literally was every game after game 3 or something. It was the road team that won, and then both teams lost home game 7. So I really don't think they can beat Boston. I think Boston's too big. I think Miami just doesn't really have a lot of answers to score against them. I think Porzingis creates some problems on offense. I'm not really worried about them stopping Boston. I actually think they can, which I think is kind of funny. I just do think that if they find an identity again of switching, I guess that's the worrying part, right, Andrew? Like, can they switch enough to deal? I don't really think they can play drop against Boston, and I think they might have to, because I don't know, but that's the scary part. I do think Bam is that good, and I'm not like super worried about them on offense. Funny enough, because I've been complaining about their defense. I just wonder if like Miami can score against them, and I think that like their offense in the playoffs becomes very Tatum centric and very Brown centric, and I just think that Miami just has easy answers for that. I think they're going to miss Gabe Vincent in that series, because he's a guy that they would put on Jaylen Brown, who has a shaky handle, and they need like a dog ball. Like, you know what I mean? Like a guy that's just going to hound you on ball. They don't really got that guy right now. And it's a lot that falls on Caleb Martin. They don't have Lowry, who, one of the things I said when they traded for Rozier was, I think Rozier is going to help them in the regular season a ton, but I think they lose some playoff equity, because I just think Lowry makes so many winning plays that you don't replace. Like in the end of that Buck series, forces a turnover on the inbound. Just all these like little annoying Kyle Lowry things that get you through a game in a tight spot that matter, right? In kind of these huge leverage situations. So we'll see. I would not have a ton of confidence against them. I just don't know how they'd score. And that kind of be my thing. And a lot of this, Andrew, comes down to like, I just don't think Jimmy's like that guy right now. I don't know if he's playing hurt. I don't know what's going on. The finishing at the rim and just sometimes the just straight up disinterest in scoring is concerning.
There's no like he could turn it on for the Knicks or for
he'll turn it on
series against. Okay,
but my thing,
because I'm going to be annoyed if you're like Jimmy's not that guy right now. And
no, he'll
I'm staring at him with 33 points on 11 shots in the third quarter.
That's not enough though, because let's not forget he was doing 45.
I'm saying tomorrow the playoffs. I agree with you. 45.
Tomorrow,
I'm saying against the Knicks, if he's got 33 on 11 shots,
he might have 11 and be 4 for 12 or something. You know what I mean? Like,
all right. I feel like if I get okey doked and I'm staring at a Jimmy Butler masterpiece, then expect your phone to be blown up.
No, yeah, you can. You can. Well, and I give you permission to publish the text.
Okay, good.
Yeah, no, you have permission. I'm just thinking ahead in the playoffs, because like I just think that I think he'll get to 85% of his max. I don't think he can get to where he was last year, and I just think that they're not good enough that 85% of what he did will get them there. I think Hawkins has hit a bit of a little rookie wall. Duncan has come back from injury. Got to see what he looks like, because that looked pretty bad. I think Bam is now a 3-point shooter. I don't know if you know this.
I've heard he's taken threes lately. Yes.
No, he's
making threes too. Yeah.
Making threes lately.
Excuse me. Yes.
So no, it's that you don't
true
understand.
Stretch 5. Yeah.
From the corner, off of handoffs at the top. And I think that like that particularly off the handoff at the top is huge, because either the ball handler kind of comes and with Duncan, they send 2 at the ball. And that used to be a slip for Bam. And teams started to switch that. But if you switch that, now you can flip it. And Bam can get the ball at the top of the key and shoot over a smaller guy that is already hedging in to kind of help on the Duncan drive. they have kind of integrated some of that stuff. He's shot from the corner out of Spain the other day, out of Spain pick and roll. I'm just like, who are you, bro? What's going on? So Miami's offense always needs a guy in the corner. That's really, a lot of teams do it, but Miami in particular, because of kind of how they run their pick and roll and their handoffs, and they don't have great spacing. What they do is they either empty the corner or they reload guys to the corner. But you have a big in the corner that helps, because that's a lot. That's late help a lot of time, unless they're kind of already in the paint, and that's an easy pass. I think simplifying passes for this team is the most important thing. And I think like kind of getting that big to cheat over is pretty big with a reliable shooter. So I've been a big fan of this development.
So I don't want to rain on your parade, and we just have to wrap up with this.
Let's do it.
I hear you that Bam actually shooting threes is like a thing and a development. To the Knicks fan that is like, oh, so is he like Kelly Olynyk now? He took 16 threes in the month of March or 18 threes in the month of March, made 9. He's a 50% 3-point shooter. I'd be curious if this becomes like a take 3 threes a game type of guy, where you actually have to honor, if it's kind of like when Draymond gets in a mood where he's shooting threes, and you just have to be understanding that, like, all right, so you're going to have to concede Draymond jump shots. It's not necessarily that he's Josh Hart and it's just like afraid to shoot threes. So it's not my biggest fear going into this matchup on Tuesday.
I know it shouldn't be. It's just like
Bam is a 50% 3-point.
He's not like flipping games with it yet. I just think
I know.
Yeah.
I just like, that's why, like, it's cool
to
see
that he's growing. I've, as you have probably noticed, they have not given me a lot of reason to be happy. I take my little win. You know what I mean? And
one thing I know that will make you happy is a win over the Knicks on Tuesday. One other thing is if Embiid... this Embiid thing, I know your vendetta against Embiid and the Sixers is fun. That's the plan right now, is the Embiid Sixers against Miami. If you can't have the 6 and play Cleveland, can I give you a 7-8 where you potentially beat Embiid and the Sixers?
I don't want to play against Kyle Lowry. Don't make me do
that. So that's the conflict.
Don't
okay.
Make me do that. Don't make
it can't just be that scene from New Jack City where you're Wesley Snipes and you're shooting your
That's
brother.
what it's gonna be if it is. Because at the end of the day, like, I'm a lifer. I will ride or die. But I won't like it. I won't like it. it. I'm just gonna be sad. If they play Philly, it's gonna be interesting because they're smaller and they are gonna have to kind of run. They're gonna have to just swarm Embiid and make those dudes make plays, which is kind of the formula that they do, right? Their thing is, okay, we're going to make Embiid a passer. We're going to help. Jimmy's going to play free safety. We're going to make those passes. We're going to make those passes difficult. We're going to make those passes over help. And Bam is going to guard you one-on-one until you make. So Miami, what they do, and it's what teams started to do with Jimmy, which I like when they defend him. And I'm curious to see how New York does it. They started to double Jimmy after he makes a move. They don't double him early. Like, Miami's big at doubling early. Right. And that's how they started the series against the Sixers. And that's how they started to do against Tatum, against the Celtics. They'll double early to get the ball out of that guy's hands quick. But what they started to do toward the end of the series was they were doubling late. And that was really what was forcing bad Embiid passes. Late under duress with the shot clock. So I am interested to see what that looks like. They have not, I don't think they've played Embiid once this season. On Christmas, he was not available and Jimmy didn't play. I don't think they've played him once this season. So I don't even know how this new drop and all this new defense looks against him, but it certainly would be fun. I actually, memes aside, I think that's a really fun matchup schematically. Don't want to fight Kyle Lowry. Just give me the Bulls or something.
I would enjoy playing week if we get Heat Sixers with Embiid playing.
The league wants that.
Well, yeah, and then that would be the same night you get that at 7, and then Lakers Warriors at like 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Buddy, we're heading for Lakers Rockets. Okay.
I think last night put the nail in that coffin. Unfortunately,
I think so too. Yeah.
Yeah, I think them losing to Luka the way they did.
Draymond saved the season, baby. Dude,
yep.
Draymond, I don't know if you've seen the memes. It's like Draymond and Clay keep writing checks that Steph has to cash. Draymond
I someone from the Light Years said that. Yeah. I was like, there you go. Last question. 30 seconds or less. The Heat do X, they'll win tomorrow night. If X happens, the Heat will win tomorrow night.
if Jimmy can generate offense against small guys.
Okay. I'll say if they hit 40% of their threes, because that's just like, you want to talk about how the Knicks might guard Jimmy with a bunch of the small guys. They're just going to collapse. And
well, I think I think.
Oh, that's part of the offense that he'll generate.
Yeah. Because Tibbs is going to, and I guess I want more macro as I know that.
Well, so real quick, I don't think they'll blitz him. Like, I don't think you're going to see what happened in the playoffs where he's just going to blitz. They'll blitz him, and then
they're going to make him prove that they need to. I think Thibodeau is not going to just off the rip. I think if Jimmy is getting early offense and he's not going to let him just demolish them all game. I think.
Right.
You might be able to better answer that. It is a regular season matchup, but I do think that they'll make it. I mean, New York needs to win these games, because. You still could get 3, which I'm sure that they want.
I know they want 3. The tough part is now that there are 8 remaining games. They're under 500 teams that should be on paper, but it's still the Heat. Whatever you think of Sacramento post Malik Monk injury, they're Thursday.
What a sentence.
They play Chicago 3 of their last 6 games.
The Knicks?
It's the weirdest schedule. They go Miami, home for Sacramento. Then it's at Chicago, at Milwaukee, at Chicago. Then it's at Boston, home for Brooklyn, home for Chicago. That's their last 8 games.
A real tour de force of the Central Division.
Little bit. So like basically if the Knicks beat the Bulls, I think they'll get the 4 seed.
You play a mini playoff series against Chicago.
Literally, there's like a quick trip to Wisconsin and then that's it. So basically the way I'm looking at it, if they could beat Chicago, then they'll get like the 4 or 5 seed. That I hope is what the floor is.
Quite funny. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
That's 3 wins for you guys right there.
I hope so. But again,
that team's pretty dog.
I cannot wait to text you tomorrow night just after the first Boyan and Alec Burks stint. And I'm like,
I'm going to be waiting. I didn't know they were that bad. I had not watched a ton of New York.
I've been telling this to our listeners, like, it's not even like game to game at this. It's possession to possession. Where it's like, oh, that was good. Okay, good job. Oh, you threw the ball
I'm glad you told me this,
over your head.
Andrew, because my good friend Rohan Nadkardi of Sports Illustrated really wanted them to trade Lowry for Bogdanovich. And I'm going to be
That's a wash. That is such a wash.
Lowry's still good, brother.
But my point is, like, take Lowry and the playoff experience over Bogey. With the
all day.
Yeah. But so, text me the first time Alec Burks passes the ball. That's what I think should happen. And you just won't talk to me all night because he never passes the ball. He gets it in the half court, and then we play a game of like, if he actually passes, drink, and then it's just a sober watch along.
That's so funny, bro.
It's been bad. It's been bad.
I was not familiar with this game.
Yeah, we were not familiar with this version of Alec Burks either. They just brought the Detroit stank over. But yeah, I think, look, the way the Knicks have won games lately is if they win the shooting variance, and like if they hit their threes, and that's how you generate offense when Brunson. They've really figured out how to take advantage of blitzes, especially getting the ball to Hartenstein and just him playing 4-on-3. If DiVincenzo's on, I think the Knicks have a good chance. If Deuce McBride is on, of course, they have a good chance. But if this is just a game where the Knicks are going to shoot 35% from 3 and the Heat are going to shoot 40, I'm just, so we're going to lose. And then that's
and unfortunately, that's super reductive of what the league has kind of become.
But that's like what the Knicks depend on now. There's no like, we can win if we don't shoot well.
I kind of think that's like and I think that kind of tells you that either you're a team that's very limited or you're a team that's very hurt. When those are kind of the terms, which the Knicks are obviously very hurt.
Mm-hmm.
That those are kind of those are kind of the
very limited
that you pedal in, because like if you're Boston and you shoot bad, you're like, okay, well, we have other stuff that we can do. You know what I mean? But yeah.
Well, we made it to an hour. Thank you, G, as always, for joining me for another edition of the pregame pod. This may be farewell for the season. We'll see if I get stuck playing you in the playoffs again.
I just like you. I don't like the Knicks, but I like
right.
I like your audience too. By the way, your audience is nicer to me than my audience.
Well, it helps that.
It's remarkable.
Well, okay. I've tuned in for a couple of post game shows, and how
you've seen what the comments say when I wear a hoodie, and anything I wear they make fun of.
well, yeah, that's annoying. But all the I'll
so
say
funny,
that I told you this last time. The fire spo, when I see that, I just you don't know.
No, they haven't done that in a while. No,
in a while, fine. So maybe I just haven't.
Kyle Lowry was the ire of their hatred for much of the year, and I think right now everyone's just mad that they're hurt, and that's kind of it. And then Tyler,
there was no like, why is Patty Mills starting? I thought I saw some of that.
I've been really off Twitter, so could be, but not in my chat.
Maybe it's not in the chat.
I was asking, why is Patty Mills starting?
Okay, so that's what I saw from @GinaVos103. Why is Patty Mills starring? There you go.
Patty took my park. I was parking at a coffee shop, and then Patty low-key cut me off to park there. Oh. I don't think he saw me, and I was like, "Who is this jerk that did that?" I was pissed. It was an Atlanta license plate, and out walks Patty Mills, and I go, "Oh well, I guess you could have it. I guess you could have it.
I guess that's your parking spot."
It was just so funny. It was, I was like, "Who is this jerk?" Because it's like a street where there's not a lot of parking. I was like, "God, how dare he?" Me and my little Honda Accord. Shout out to Patty. Good guy. Glad he's here. Patty, please shoot better.
Before you get out of here, what do you want to plug?
Listen, plug Miami Heat Beat, the GOAT Heat Podcast, twitch.tv/Miami Heat Beat. You want to be there for fun. If you want to make fun of us, come down. We'll have a good time. We can take it. Knicks fans, come in, have a good time with us. Anybody else, if you want to be informed and laugh a little bit, join us. I just want to give a quick shout out, other than my podcast, Andrew. My Liverpool Reds, top of the table in the Premier League. That's all I'm saying, man. Fate's in our hands. Could get this dub before Jurgen Klopp comes out. Just want to give a shout out to my guys. I'm more into Liverpool right now than the Heat. Liverpool right now is my main concern because we got to let Jurgen Klopp leave with a win, the GOAT. So shout out to my Reds.
Okay. A soccer shout. Excuse me, a football shout out at the end of the
Excuse you, sir.
I was respectful of it.
Yeah, no, you were.
I've been trained. Shout out Ted Lasso for getting me to respect the game of football.
Yeah, you know how relegation works, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. G, as always, thank you for joining me. And thank you to everybody for joining me for another edition of the KFS pregame show. If you dig it, head over to iTunes, drop a 5-star rating and a review. I will be back Thursday morning to preview that matchup, another Knicks matchup back at home against the Sacramento Kings. But until next time, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. Enjoy the game tonight, and I will speak with you soon. Peace.